Welcome to the Spotlight, a series of talks with the thinkers and builders in the cloud infrastructure space. Today is a little bit different. It's my pleasure to host M.R. Rangaswami, a man of many talents, Managing Director of Sandal Group, founder of Indiaspora, about his perspective on cloud, enterprise, and social entrepreneurship. MR, you're quite famous. But could you share for the audience a bit about your personal journey before you co-founded the Sandal Group and Indiaspora and the experiences that shaped your interest in all of these?
Prabakar, thanks for having me. I think it's great to be on the show. My background was pretty much like most people who come to Silicon Valley. You studied in India, you came here to do your master's, then you get a job. But the accidental thing for me was actually coming to Silicon Valley in 1982 when really nobody knew much about Silicon Valley. Oracle was $1 million company. Apple was a mere $500 million company. Nobody really knew. We had all these guys with great ideas to change the world, but nobody knew any of that could happen. So it was a great time to be here as an accidental guy in Silicon Valley and to see the growth and development and success of the Valley.
Yeah, very interesting. So, where did you get started with that, and how did that progress into the Sandal Group, Indiaspora?
So I was like most people here, joined a startup. Company did really great for 3 years, doubled and doubled every year, and then went bankrupt. Then went to yeah. So that was my first attempt.
Okay.
Then I was fortunate. One of my friends joined Oracle. And Larry Ellison at that time was trying to start an applications business, and I was brought in to work on the strategy for that and to launch their apps. So that's how I kind of got into Oracle in the good days when they were doubling each year. So then I saw what a successful company could do. But then after that, I had the bug to go back into a startup. So I went into another startup, which again doubled every year and went broke in year 3. I don't know why, that was a pattern. And after that, I was lucky enough to be part of a management team that actually did an IPO. Right. So I did go to the Super Bowl, and we did have an exit.
Awesome.
We went public, and that was my career in the tech space. After that, I decided to kind of quit and do my own stuff. Became an angel investor before the term was coined.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. So, transitioning from that venture side of it to becoming a super angel, you had quite a great track record. You were named to Midas Touch, Forbes Midas Touch, and all of that. So, what was that like, and what's the secret of that success?
So I started investing in startups before, like I said, the word angel was coined. And little did I realize that the Wall Street Journal wanted to write about me. And that kind of gave me my 15 minutes of fame being on the front page of the journal, which led to a lot of deals coming my way and stuff like that as well. So it was a great moment in time. But between 95 and 2000, anybody could have made money in Silicon Valley. So I don't think being on the Midas list at that time for a couple of years it was more luck and timing than anything. But I focused on the B2B software space, and that did really well.
That's probably an important distinction, I think, because it's
I
more
didn't
than
invest
just
in
luck.
I didn't do pets.com. I didn't do any of those companies.
Right,
all the companies we did build software for the
So
enterprise.
the B2B was actually quite a solid kind of movement. So I think that's very important. So although you're being self-deprecating, I think you did some things right, obviously. So from there, you went on to start these enterprise conferences, 2 or 3 of them, and most recent the Enterprise Retreat Conference. So can you walk us through about that side of things and what the latest has been? A few words about that.
So I always had the passion to build networks that make an impact. And so I decided, since I knew the B2B space, I'd bring leaders in that industry together to talk about the industry, not to talk about their companies, not to talk to the public or customers, but talk amongst themselves about their problems, about their issues, whether they go
These
public.
Are very senior enterprise
These were the leaders, CEOs of Oracle or Microsoft or SAP. These were the caliber of people who came into this event. And it was a charitable event right from the start. So people really understood that this was not a money-making enterprise.
I attended one of them in Santa Cruz.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And so that was what we had in mind. And therefore, we were able to get a pulse on the industry, but also discuss issues which in today's world, in public forums, would be tweeted and posted on social media and really not go anywhere. So that was the intent. And so we did that for many, many years. Took a pause when B2C companies were hot in the mid 2000s. And then a year ago, we revived the event as the Enterprise Retreat. In fact, we just finished that event.
Now you could actually tweet.
Now we can actually post event, but no names can be attributed.
So you just finished that. So coming out from that, so we would like to hear about what are the thought processes on an enterprise cloud adoption, impediments like security issues and edge cloud. There's a lot of excitement about edge cloud and 5G. So coming out from this most recent episode of that, if you could give us through like key takeaways, that would be great.
For some reason, a lot of my enterprise conferences seem to be when a crisis happens. In 2000, 2000 when the bubble burst, we had an event right around that time. We also closed our conference just before the 2008 crisis, and now...
So is this another pattern?
This is another pattern. So now, with the latest crisis, we were really interested in seeing what CEOs thought of the industry, because you have to separate the two. So when we asked people, will there be a recession? 75% of the attendees, only 100 people, said there will be a recession. But when we asked them, how is your company going to grow this year? Almost half of them said they'd grow 50% or higher. So there's still a lot of optimism in the technology industry, in the B2B space. And so we think that the future is still bright. For example, with cloud, very few people realize only cloud has 6% adoption, which means that's 94% of the people who still need to get converted. So we're just in the beginning of cloud. Then cloud is not just viewed as the centralized architecture, right? You have the edge. And that's coming up for more and more opportunities and investments and solutions. So I think the cloud just flows from the centralized cloud to the edge, and then eventually 5G is also going to really move that to a different level. And people were very bullish about 5G, not immediately, but in the next few years. They felt that this was a technology that had promise, but it would take a little bit to get adopted. So it was cloud, edge, 5G, all coming, but this is very exciting opportunities.
Was there any
people.
Discussion at all about security concerns? Like for instance, JP Morgan has not adopted cloud in a big way. They're kind of like saying security, right? Was there any concerns with how that will be overcome?
I think the general consensus was cloud was going to eventually overcome all these obstacles. It's just a matter of time. And people are providing different kinds of security solutions. Customers are finding different opportunities to implement cloud. So there might be some speed bumps. That's the way people look at it. It's not an impediment to stopping the adoption of the cloud.
So it's more a how than a
how then not, and when, not if.
Yeah.
So I think these technologies, 5G and edge, are going to be red hot in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of actually companies getting traction, customers adopting these solutions. So I think there's a lot of things that are bright in the future.
Very good. That's exciting to hear. Absolutely. It's heartening to hear the numbers of growth prospects that people are looking for. So we'll kind of.
And by the way, capital is going to be cheap as well. So we also discussed the landscape of money.
Zero interest rates.
At zero interest rates with nothing else to invest in. I think the asset allocation strategies of large pools of capital are still towards venture capital and private equity. So there'll be two kinds of exits possible for startups that you guys do. One is getting funded, and the second, the exit could be a larger company that's funded by the private equity partners.
Yeah, that seems to be happening a lot these days.
Exactly.
Where it's not necessarily going public, it's going into private equity.
Which is better for the entrepreneur. It could be better for the investors. So you don't have to go into a public space. You just get your liquidity in a different fashion.
That's good insight. Yeah, that's great. So let's kind of like take a little bit of a turn, going from what's going to happen to kind of talk about entrepreneurship in a few different ways. One is that we have been associated for quite a long time. You have been a very early investor and very close advisor for the Fabric. So you have seen us having this journey over the past 7 years. Any thoughts on this journey together? that you would like
Absolutely.
to share?
I think you're so differentiated in the space, right? The traditional investor just gives you money and a little bit of time at board meetings. I think what you guys do is to co-create the product and the company before you get on the journey. So I think that's a very different model, and it pays dividends because maybe you take a little bit more time up front to do things, but when you do it, it's a solid solution compared to other startups where you might just throw some money at something. You guys really bring that wherewithal to actually test out, to prove it before you actually get additional funding. So maybe it's a little slow in the beginning, but that's okay. You go faster later with more capital, with more customers and so forth. So I really value that collaborative approach. Also taking risk. You've shut down companies, for example, which is also okay, right? It's better to do it in this mode than to get it funded with tons of capital and shut down. So it's also good you fail fast. And that's part of your model. I love the collaboration, love the fail fast approach. So I think this is very differentiated, and that's why I still am and excited to be with you guys.
And the role people like you play in guiding these companies and giving them input and guidance and connecting them with the right opportunities, that has been very, very valuable. So thank you very much for that.
Anytime. And I know you guys now have a thought leadership, CIO, CTO council. And
you are part of that, bringing also people to attend.
It's great to kind of have that whole ecosystem in one space.
Right. That's been really awesome. So thank you very much for all the help. So, before we get to kind of the social entrepreneurship, kind of like the on the other kind of entrepreneurship. So what you have, like you said, you have been gone through successes and you have had some failures, and you have invested in so many companies, success, failures. Any kind of like general tips that you would like to share on what it takes to break through?
Yeah, I mean, I've done in the last 20 years 80 deals, so it seems like a lot of deals, but it's 4 or 5 a year. And what I've looked for is really the chemistry with the founder or the entrepreneur. And that's what I go by, far less as to the market opportunity, the TAM, and all these other things that traditional investors do. Because this is my own capital, so I don't have the same metrics as others do. I'm sure you have more rigorous metrics on your side. But I think the key is finding the right entrepreneur with the right characteristics, someone who listens, and also takes action. So I really like that. I also like people who are committed rather than involved. So I typically don't like to invest in companies where the entrepreneur still has a day job and is trying to do this at night. I'd like to see them jump with 2 feet into the opportunity. So these are all checks. And also in the last 20 years, I've met with over 2,000 entrepreneurs. And so there's a pattern in my head as to who is a good fit for me or who's not. And so far, I've had successes pay for all the losses I've had. So I think it's still working out. I'm still ahead of the game.
No, it's interesting that you should say that. In fact, our approach is also not really metrics based. It's really finding that entrepreneur who's really passionate about a space that we identify. First, we identify a space. Right. And then we kind of like see entrepreneurs who are committed and passionate about it. And we also go through a long period where it's not they are not doing something else. They are just working on this. So it's very similar. Nice to see that resonance. So now let's kind of like take another turn. Yeah. More talking about the social entrepreneurship. So you have done a few different things along that direction. You have that environment initiative, and then you have Indiaspora. So if you can take us through that aspect of it.
Yeah. One of the things, like I said, I have a passion to build networks. So besides the CEO network in the software industry, I also started another group called the Corporate Eco Forum. Yes, it's a membership group of 75 of the world's largest companies, Apple, Amazon, Disney, and so forth, to get together and share best practices around innovation and best practices around sustainability, reducing greenhouse gases, increasing renewable energy purchases and so forth. Because I think we really need to really commit to that space so that our kids and grandkids hopefully can have a better world than we have at this point.
They can talk about cloud.
Exactly. They can talk about the real cloud. And so that was one. And then the most recent one I've done is called Indiaspora, which you're part of.
Yeah.
You and Rajan are both members of that.
Please tell us about that.
It's a group of Indian American leaders who are really working on political engagement so that we are influential in the country we live in. We also are taking care of the community we live in, and that's mainly through philanthropy.
Some of the largest companies are the CEOs are
CEOs
Indian.
are Indian. We need to give back more. We're the highest earning demographic amongst all ethnic communities. So there's a responsibility on our community to give more to the places we've created our wealth, but also to India as well. So that's something we promoted in diaspora, is the whole area of philanthropy, which also bleeds into the area you do. I have a pet thing that I echo to all entrepreneurs, and that is Mark Benioff's solution, which he so greatly created, which was 1 + 1 + 1. So you give 1% of your company's stock to a charity or a foundation, you give 1% of your profits again to charity, and 1% of the employees' time needs to be given to working with NGOs. So I really hope that this is a concept even Fabric can
Very
take to heart.
interesting. Yeah, that's great.
As you create companies in the future.
Excellent, excellent. So I think thank you very much for your perspectives. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more details. Thank you.